Mercedes on the final day of pre-season testing have surprisingly unveiled an unprecedented and significant change to their W15's anti-dive front suspension layout, with the team now introducing an even more extreme version not seen during the first 2 days of this pre-season test. One of the foundations for having a competitive car in this ground effect era is to have a platform that is as stable as possible under braking, hence the even greater importance compared to previous generations of cars in having a mechanical platform with certain characteristics. And of course we are talking about the anti-dive front suspension and anti-squat rear suspension. And over the winter, among many other changes to their new W15, the Mercedes team worked to give their drivers a much more balanced car than the predecessor, which allows them to push without any unwanted surprises or lack of understanding about what the car is going to do in corners. This was one of the development objectives pursued by the technical team led by James Allison, together with the improvement of the chronic instability at the rear of the W14, which we heard Hamilton and Russell talk about on many an occasion. They also, of course, focused on the aerodynamic efficiency. But more importantly, and what we're talking about in this video, is the new rear suspension layout with a now newly introduced pushrod scheme. Equally as important is the pull rod suspension layout at the front, with the now additional benefit of a anti-dive system. These two pieces in tandem have a very important role to play with Mercedes' W15 and its ability to give them a stable platform while braking. As on this generation of cars, the rear suspension layout has an aerodynamic advantage if you're running a push rod configuration over that of a pull rod, as you can mount the upper elements of the suspension higher, and this allows for a more aggressive design in the front part of the transmission and gearbox. But this also allows for a possibility of having less blockage when it comes to your aerodynamics in one of the most crucial areas of any Formula 1 car, i.e. the mouth of the diffuser. And this leaves room for many new avenues of development and further potential to be extracted from that area. Now, interestingly enough, during the presentation of the W15 and we got our mock renders of it, Mercedes showed something which at the time seemed to have been a rendering error by them, as it had two front lower suspension arms on the render. So we obviously thought this was a rendering issue, but what this actually was them showing us actually both variations of their rear suspension layout, and today we have now finally seen the second of those two layouts. And this is where it gets really, really interesting with this new layout that they debuted on the final day of testing. For those of you unaware about the front anti-dive and the rear anti-squat suspension, here is a brief explanation on both the front and rear suspension and what we're trying to do with it. It's all to do with the transfer of load from the rear end to the front of the car while under braking. Something that Red Bull have once again been far and away the front runners in this area of development since the start of the ground effect era. So, to keep the explanation short of what Mercedes want to achieve, essentially they want to minimize the lift at the rear of the car while under braking, so they can keep the floor of the W15 as low to the ground as possible. When braking, the change in pitch shifts the application point of the downforce forwards. The front ring gets closer to the ground, producing more downforce. This is evident on the onboard camera shots that we get of the front ring from race weekends. The floor/diffuser lifts, potentially reducing its downforce, and as a consequence, the car might become unstable during braking. The car then enters the next phase of the braking, which is the driver is now entering the corner and the static pitch angle restricts. The car's rear tyres are again pushed more towards the ground than the front, causing understeer and slow turning, the exact opposite of what we want. And this is where Red Bull's anti-dive system comes into play. Essentially, at the front with their new suspension, the inclination of the wrist bones is peculiar as their extension intersects just below the center of mass. This way, only a part of the load transfer produces pitch. Thus, the car remains flat under braking. And while Mercedes may have retained their pushrod layout for the front suspension, they have in fact introduced anti-dive into it. And as mentioned earlier in the video, they have 2 iterations of it, and one of them has gone to even further extremes of introductions when it comes to anti-dive. And essentially, we can see 2 differences on the front suspension layouts on screen right now. On the left, we have the original one, which they ran for the first 2 days. And on the right, we have the brand new one that was debuted today on the final day of testing. Now, what I want you to pay very close attention to is the lower suspension arm on both of these images. You will note where they actually mount to the chassis is dramatically different. On the left, on the original one, it's mounted much higher up, so this doesn't allow to have as much of an extreme amount of anti-dive generated from this particular version of the front suspension. Whereas on the right hand side, the newly debuted one, it's a lot lower down on the chassis, and this allows for an increase, quite dramatically in fact, of the anti-dive that is present in this iteration of front suspension. And I think what they're going to be doing with this is essentially going from track to track, evaluating what they need to get out of their front suspension. Do they need more of an aero platform, or do they need more of a anti-dive platform? And they will make adjustments on which one to use depending on that question's answer. They've retained the pushrod layout from last season, but have now incorporated anti-dive fully within its design. This is something Red Bull have pioneered throughout the ground effect era of F1, and Mercedes are now finally playing catch up. But you have to do this in 2 sections. One is with the front suspension, while you also have to incorporate the design into the rear suspension. More on that later. But to briefly summarize what the anti-dive layout suspension is all about, it's about making sure under braking that there isn't too much bounce for the driver, and it creates a much more stable platform, and it will help to cure any understeer housed within the car. Right everyone, thank you for watching the video. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, leave a like on it, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you all in another Formula 1 video very soon.